June 15, 1944, 1:12 a.m., over the Marianas. The night sky is moonless, just a vast, silent ocean of black. And cutting through it at 9,000 feet, a Mitsubishi G4M Betty bomber drifts forward like a slow-moving ghost inside the cockpit. The Japanese pilot, Lt. Haruto Nakamura, squints through the glass. The air is warm, humid, and impossibly still. His co-pilot jokes that American night fighters are as blind as newborn rats. The crew chuckles, passing a canteen while their engines thrum in the darkness. For months, their night runs had been safe, almost leisurely. U.S. searchlights rarely found them. Night interceptors? Practically non-existent, but tonight. Something feels different. Nakamura shifts in his seat. The Betty's engines echo strangely in the air, as though swallowed by something deeper, heavier. Below him, Sapan's faint fires. Twinkle from the American invasion, the island barely visible, the battlefield muffled by darkness. He doesn't know it yet. But something is following him. Something with the wingspan of a medium bomber, the radar range of a warship, and a crew trained specifically to hunt aircraft like his from the black miles behind. Invisible to the naked eye, a black silhouette. Slips through the sky, sleek, predatory, patient. Its twin engines whisper rather than roar. Its belly-mounted radar dish spins silently. The P-61 Black Widow is awake hours earlier. On the ground at Eiley Field, the air was a different kind of dark, hot floodlights. Shouting crew chiefs, the stink of oil and exhaust, Captain Everett. Red Maxwell, one of the first American night fighter pilots in the Pacific, had climbed into the Widow's cockpit with a knot in his stomach. Not fear, anticipation for months. They had listened to Japanese pilots mock American night operations in intercepted transmissions. Primitive, blind, too slow. And for months, they had no real answer. But now? Now Maxwell had radar so powerful he could see a bomber from miles away. And firepower that could shred it in seconds. You'll get company tonight. His radar operator, SGT Raymond Pierce, had said as they lifted off. Betty crews think they own the dark. Maxwell smirked. Let's take it from them. And now here they are. Pierce leans into his glowing oscilloscope. A faint blip appears, then strengthens. Contact. 20 degrees left, same altitude. Maxwell doesn't look at the screen. He trusts Pierce's voice, steady and confident. In the dim glow of the instrument lights, he banks gently. The Widow responds like a cat stretching its claws. You can almost feel it. The narrator's voice would whisper to the viewer. That quiet shift from hunting to closing in. The night outside is absolute. From the Betty's cockpit. There is no sign of pursuit, not a glimmer. Not a shadow. Nakamura yawns, tapping his compass. His tail gunner, bored, scans the endless black behind them. Nothing to see. Nothing ever to see, but then a flicker, a feeling, really. Like being watched. He rubs his eyes, shakes his head, just nerves, miles back. Pierce's voice has sharpened, range closing, 800 meters, you're right on top of him. Maxwell flips the safety covers open. The Widow's 420 millimeters. Cannons wait beneath him, silent for now. He descends slightly, just enough to stay invisible against the starless sky. In the Betty's tail. The gunner lights a cigarette with cupped hands. The ember glows briefly, too briefly, because the P-61 pilot sees it, a pinprick of light. A perfect marker in the void. Maxwell angles upward, lining up the silhouette. Got you. He whispers. The Widow rises like a shadow ascending from the sea, and then Pierce's tone shifts, lower, urgent. Hold, another signal coming in. Bigger, faster. Maxwell freezes. 2 blips. One they expected, but the second? That means the night is about to get far more complicated. The 2 blips pulse on Pierce's radar screen, one steady, one aggressive. Maxwell narrows his eyes. That second contact distance. Pierce adjusts the gain. Closing fast, very fast, a pause. Fighter speed. Maxwell exhales through his teeth. So we've got company after all. Far ahead, the Betty. But more drones peacefully on, unaware that a P-61 is drifting into position beneath its tail. And even more unaware that another hunter has slipped into the night behind. Them both, 1:24 a.m., somewhere above the Marianas dot in the cockpit of an A6M0 modified for night operations. Japanese pilot Ensign Tetsuo Yoshida scans the darkness. Unlike Nakamura's bomber, Yoshida's fighter is fast, nimble, and deadly, and he is one of the few pilots trained to fly without moonlight. He didn't believe the rumors at first. American night fighters? Impossible, laughable. A nation that relied on searchlights and luck could not threaten Japan's night supremacy. But tonight a bomber crew reported engine noises behind them, sounds they couldn't explain. Yoshida volunteered immediately. And now, through the Zero's canopy, the faint glimmer of a cigarette ember appears ahead. A tiny red spark in infinity. He angles his fighter toward it. He doesn't know yet that, too. American airmen see him before he sees them. Pierce leans closer to the radar scope. That second contact is tracking us, not the bomber, Maxwell's voice drops. Distance? 300 meters and closing. That is uncomfortably close. Maxwell feels the hair on the back of his neck rise. Enemy fighters almost never operated at night. They preferred dawn and dusk. So whoever this is, he's experienced, determined, and bold, exactly the kind of pilot who could ruin everything. Pierce whispers, he knows we're here. The ocean below is featureless black, but the sky is alive with tension. Maxwell kills his navigation lights. The cockpit plunges into near darkness, illuminated only by the red glow of gauges. He lowers the Widow's nose a hair, letting gravity pull them into shadow. Let him overshoot. Pierce murmurs for a moment. The P-61 is silent, still, dark mass blending into even darker air. The oncoming blip creeps closer, closer. Pierce bites his lip. And then it streaks past them, a black shape, almost invisible except for a faint starlight outline of wings. Cuts across the P-61's left side. Pierce jolts upright. Zero! That's a zero! Maxwell snaps his head toward the silhouette, disappearing into the dark. So the Japanese did have night fighters out here. And they were good. Reversing pursuit, Maxwell says, already throwing the Widow into a wide, rolling turn. Pierce hangs on as the cockpit tilts. The bomber's still ahead. He'll reach cloud cover soon. Maxwell grits his teeth. Then we get the fighter first. The Widow descends, banking hard, engines humming low, but powerful. A predator choosing the more dangerous prey. Yoshida, now behind the Betty, scans for the sound his bomber crew reported. But the darkness betrays nothing. He levels out, confused. The American night fighters were supposed to be clumsy, slow, noisy. If they were even real, the Betty's crew waves to him. He gives a quick waggle of wings in return, then a shadow moves below him, just a ripple of absence. A shifting of darker against dark. Yoshida squints. A chill slides down his spine. That's not the Betty? That's not clouds? Something is climbing? Something big. Maxwell aligns behind the faint outline of the Zero. It's barely visible, just the suggestion of wings and cockpit. But the Widow has what the Zero doesn't. Radar, range finding, 4 20mm cannons and 4.5 Ocal machine guns. Pierce whispers 70 meters. 50, he still hasn't seen us. Maxwell steadies his breathing. The Betty is now drifting into distant haze, safe for the moment. The Zero is theirs. He moves his thumb to the trigger, but then Yoshida jerks his fighter to the left, hard. Instinct, fear, some primal animal sense. He hasn't seen them, but he felt them. Maxwell curses. He's good, he's damn good. The Zero spirals away into the dark, disappearing like smoke. For a heartbeat, the two American airmen sit. In silence, Pierce breaks it. We're not done. Look, he's coming back. And sure enough, the blip reappears. Fast, aggressive, head-on, a duel is coming. A night fight between two pilots who can barely see each other, and somewhere ahead, the bomber still flies. Unaware of the collision course forming behind it, the radar screen pulses one bright echo cutting straight toward them. A head-on pass at night. With almost no visual reference, Pierce mutters, he's either insane or very, very skilled. Maxwell tightens his harness. Then let's show him we are too. He nudges the Widow's throttle. The engines growl, low and predatory. The sky ahead is absolute darkness, no horizon, no starlight, nothing but the invisible approach of a man who believes he owns. The night, 1:27 a.m., The Zero's canopy rattles as Ensign Yoshida dives out of his turn and pulls back toward the threat he sensed. He sees nothing, yet everything in his body screams that an enemy is near. American night fighters shouldn't be here. They shouldn't exist at this level, but he's seen shadows moving where shadows shouldn't move. A ghost. A shape without lights. A machine that feels too large, too heavy, too silent. His instructor once said, "At night, you fight what you feel, not what you see." Tonight, Yoshida feels death pressing somewhere ahead. He pushes the stick forward, range 100 meters and closing, Pierce says, eyes locked on the scope. He speaks quietly, steadily, every word a lifeline inside the black. Maxwell's mind sharpens. A night intercept is never clean. Never safe. Heaven help you if you lose the enemy. For even a second. The Pacific sky will swallow you whole. He steadies the P-61's nose. Then, faintly, a speck, a spark, a tiny point of reflected starlight glances off a canopy somewhere dead ahead. Maxwell inhales sharply. There you are, Yoshida sees it at the same time, a flash, barely a flicker off glass. Impossible at this distance. Impossible for an American fighter to be this close. His gut twists, he rolls right, violently, and the Zero slices downward in a whipped arc. Maxwell snarls. He dodged that. Pierce jerks the radar controls. He's diving, following him. The P-61 plunges after the Zero, but it's a dangerous game. Down there, the Pacific surface waits like a black mirror. Impossible to judge depth or distance for the viewer. The narration tightens. You can feel the air boiling past the canopy. You can feel the Widow's wings tremble as the pilots chase a ghost through a void. They descend. 8,000 feet. 7,000. 6,500. Pierce calls out. Don't go lower than 5,000. We'll lose radar clarity. But Maxwell is locked in. He matches the Zero move for move, letting instinct guide him. The Widow is bigger, heavier, but she's fast. And in this darkness, the enemy's agility matters less than his ability to be seen, which he can't, until Yoshida makes a mistake. He pulls up too sharply. Just a fraction too fast for one heartbeat, one perfect, fragile heartbeat. His silhouette crosses between Maxwell and the faint horizon glow behind him, a perfect outline. A target. Maxwell snaps the Widow's nose up and squeezes the trigger. 4.50 cal's thunder. 420mm cannons flash with lightning arcs beneath the fuselage. The night lights up in brief, violent strobes. Pierce winces at the brightness. The Zero jolts as tracers zip past its wings, but Yoshida moves like a ghost, slipping out of the cone of fire with inches to spare. Maxwell growls. He's reading my moves, how? Pierce. This guy's not just lucky, he's trained. Maxwell. Banks right hard. The Widow shudders. But then the radar pings again. Pierce's voice goes cold. He's not running. He's circling back for another strike. Maxwell wipes sweat from his temple. If he comes at us head-on again, he'll force a collision. The viewer can almost feel the cockpit tightening, the air thinning, the sky closing in. A Zero versus a Widow, two pilots who can barely see each other. A night duel that neither should survive, and then a third blip appears on the radar. Pierce freezes. Oh no, the bomber's turning. He's heading right. Toward us. 3 aircraft converging in the dark, one path. One moment, a tangle of death waiting to happen. The radar screen blooms 3 echoes now pulsing in a tightening triangle. Pierce leans closer, his voice dropping to a whisper even though the enemy can't hear him. The Betty's turning straight into our path. If we hold course, we're all going to meet in the same 500 feet of sky. Maxwell's jaw locks. Why is the bomber turning? That doesn't make sense. Pierce scans again. It's evasive. Something spooked them, Maxwell exhales. They feel the Zero's panic. 1:30 a.m.? Over the Marianas. The Betty bomber's cockpit is lit only by the dim glow of its gauges. LT Haruto Nakamura runs a hand along the canopy frame, uneasy. His co-pilot notices his tension. Something wrong? Nakamura shakes his head, unsure. It's the air. Feels different. The tail gunner reports faint flashes far behind them, a brief flicker of gunfire. No sound, no shapes. Just light. Swallowed by the night. Nakamura stiffens. American fighters? Out here? At this hour? The co-pilot scoffs. Impossible. They cannot see us. But the tail gunner's voice cracks. I think I saw something. A shadow climbing. Nakamura pulls the throttle. Turn 20 degrees port, now. He trusts instinct over pride. Back in the P-61. The cockpit trembles with rising tension. Pierce calls out, "We've got maybe 30 seconds before all three of us intersect." Maxwell's mind races. If they break off now, the Zero will get a clean shot. If they continue the chase, the Betty becomes a battering ram in the dark. If they drop altitude, they'll lose radar and fly blind. If they climb, they'll silhouette themselves against the faint horizon glow. No choice is good. But one is less bad. We go down. 500 feet. Pierce flinches. That's borderline suicide, exactly why he won't expect it. Maxwell throws the Widow into a shallow dive, instruments rattling as they sink into deeper shadow. The world vanishes further. No sky, no sea. Just a heavy black void pressing against the canopy, then a faint vibration. Pierce checks the altimeter. We're low, too low. Maxwell steadies the Widow with every ounce of control he has. Above them. The Zero dives to intercept. The Bettys turn completely unaware. He just overshot the Americans. Inside the Zero, Yoshida feels his lungs tighten. The bomber is drifting across his nose. He jerks left to avoid collision, slicing a razor-thin line through the air. He curses under his breath. "Where are you?" For a moment the night grows still, too still, then Maxwell sees it, a shape, cutting across the darkness above. A shadow against a slightly less dark sky. The Zero. Pierce whispers, "He's right on top of us." Maxwell steadies his breathing. The Widow rises just enough, to slip behind the Zero's tail. Pierce's voice trembles. 40 meters, 30, 20. Maxwell's thumb touches the trigger, and then a blinding flash. Not from the Widow, not from the Zero. From ahead, the Betty's engines flare as it banks sharply. The bomber's massive frame suddenly fills the forward view, a hulking silhouette. Barreling across their path, Maxwell slams the controls sideways. The Widow rolls so violently Pierce slams into the cockpit wall, a roar, a passing shadow. Wind ripping across the Widow's fuselage. They come within 20 feet of colliding with the bomber. Maxwell gasps. Pierce clutches the console. Silence follows. Horrible, ringing silence. They've lost the Zero, lost the Betty, lost everything. Radar. Scope empty. Maxwell's heart pounds. We didn't come all this way to lose them now. Pierce swallows. Then you'd better see this. The radar blip returns, one single echo, heading straight toward them again. Faster than before, the Zero isn't done. He's coming back for a kill, and he isn't hunting the bomber anymore. He's hunting them. Pierce stares at the radar scope, his breath fogging the glass. The blip isn't drifting or circling this time. It's charging. Zero inbound. Full speed. He's committed. Maxwell wipes sweat from his brow. He wants a head-on kill. It's worse than that, Pierce murmurs. He's aiming dead center. If neither of us breaks, we collide. Maxwell knows the Zero is lighter, more maneuverable. Its pilot, this ghost in the dark, is gambling everything. A head-on pass in daylight is suicidal. At night, it's madness. Yet the blip comes on, steady, determined, certain. Yoshida is not trying to chase them anymore. He is trying to erase them. 1:32 a.m., 5,000 feet above the Pacific. Inside the Zero's cramped cockpit, Yoshida's breathing slows. His hands steady. The American night fighter is out there. He heard its engines, saw its silhouette, felt its presence. He follows. Instinct, not eyesight. He tucks in behind a faint patch of haze and accelerates. The Zero slices forward like a spear through black velvet. His instructor's words echo in his mind. At night, bravery and stupidity look very similar. Only the survivor knows which he was. Yoshida intends to survive. He angles. Nose to nose with the invisible enemy. Back in the Widow, Pierce's voice tightens. He's 50 meters out. 40. Maxwell squints into the void ahead. Nothing. There is only a wall of darkness. He's not lighting his guns. Pierce says. He's not firing. Why isn't he firing? And then Maxwell understands. He's using the Widow's silhouette. What? He wants to get close enough to see our shape against the faint horizon, then ram or fire at point blank. Pierce's stomach drops. He's turning the dark into a weapon. Maxwell rolls the Widow slightly, giving her a few degrees of angle. Not enough to dodge? Just enough to break the perfect symmetry Yoshida is chasing. Then the P-61's altimeter beeps. A warning. They're hugging dangerously low air. One mistake. One wrong correction. And the Pacific will swallow them. Yoshida finally catches what he's been hunting. A soft outline, huge, heavy, unmistakable. The American twin-engine fighter is right there. A shadow against a slightly lighter shadow. He descends a hair, just enough to catch them on the upward roll. Now, he whispers. He presses the trigger. The Widow's cockpit lights burst with warning flashes as cannon rounds streak past their right engine. Maxwell snaps the throttle. The airframe lurches. There he is. Pierce shouts. Maxwell doesn't see the zero. He feels it as it rips past the wingtip like a bullet through silk. The shockwave rocks the Widow. Gauges rattle. Metal CRE. Pierce gasps. He missed by inches. Maxwell immediately rolls inverted and pulls back, flipping the Widow upside down in the dark. Gravity slaps Pierce against his harness. Where is he? Maxwell barks. Pierce twists the radar dial. The scope is nearly blind this close, but then a faint return. Then stronger. Then sharp. Pierce's voice is a razor edge. Directly above us. He's climbing for another pass. Maxwell steadies the controls. This time, he won't wait. This time, the Widow will choose the moment. He levels out, breath shallow, eyes fixed. On the dark. Get me his distance. Pierce inhales. 60 meters, 50, 40. Maxwell whispers, come on. The zero silhouette begins to form just the faintest curve of wings. Pierce, 30, 25. Maxwell places his thumb on the trigger. This is it, one squeeze. And the night ends, but then a crackle of radio static, a new voice, urgent, panicked. Black Widow 1, do you read? We have multiple bogies entering the sector. Repeat, multiple. Betty group approaching from the east. Maxwell's eyes widen. Pierce's jaw drops. Not one bomber. Not two. A whole flight. And they're heading straight for the same patch of darkness where the Widow and the Zero are seconds from killing each. This isn't a duel anymore. It's about to become a battlefield. Night settles over Aishima like a curtain of wet ink, swallowing the coastline, the palms, the runway lights one by one. Only the red beacons remain pulsing dots in the darkness. To the ground crews, they look like the heartbeat of the island itself. To the pilots, they are the last things they'll see before entering the void. Tonight, every heartbeat matters inside the P-61 revetments. Mechanics move fast but quiet, tightening panel screws, rechecking hydraulic lines, wiping dust from the massive, belly-mounted -720 Seychelles rupees radar dish. No one jokes. No one smokes. Everyone knows what's coming. The Japanese have adapted. 3 attacks in 4 nights. Hit-and-run strikes. Erratic flight paths, bait tactics, Zeros diving in from impossible angles. Betty bombers cutting engines mid-approach to coast and silently ghost. Ships in the sky, they aren't mocking American night fighters anymore. They're fighting with everything they have left, and the next attack is overdue. In a small radio shack near the airstrip, Lieutenant James Rook Ruderman stands hunched over a glowing PPI radar screen. Sweat trickles down his spine despite the cold. The humidity is crushing, turning every breath into something you push rather than draw. He taps the glass softly. They're just a flicker, 2 faint blips appearing off the northwest coast. Low and slow, Rook swallows. That's them, he whispers. He snatches the phone. Black Widows scramble. At the revetments, engines roar to life deep, rolling thunder that rattles the corrugated metal walls. One by one, the P-61s taxied forward, their red-tipped propellers cutting the darkness into ribbons. Captain Warren Dusk Albright's voice comes through the radio, low and steady, Widow 1 rolling. Behind him, Lieutenant Isaac Mercer follows, then a third crew. Rookies tonight, flying their first combat mission. No one says it, but everyone knows the rookie's survival depends on how well the veterans draw fire. The runway lamps blink. Twice-go. The Widows surge forward, their massive fuselages lifting heavy but confident into the humid Japanese night, 2,000 feet up. The darkness is absolute, not the darkness you know, a denser kind. A living thing. Mercer adjusts his radar scope, watching green arcs sweep across the circular screen. Static. Ghost echoes. Ocean clutter, then dash bang dash motion. Two bogies, one high, one low. Both moving fast. He snaps his mic. Dusk, I've got high-speed movement bearing 075. Two contacts. Looks like a staggered formation. Dusk's cool voice returns. Copy, Widow 1 altering intercept course. Keep eyes open, could be a bait run. Below them, the sea is a mirror. With no reflection, a black sheet that swallows everything. The Widows climb through thin layers of island fog, their wings slicing silently through vapor. At 8,000 feet, Mercer sees it, a thin glimmer just a pinprick far off ahead. He leans over his radar like a man praying. That's engine flash. Betty bomber, heading straight for the fuel depots. Dusk inhales sharply. Not tonight. He pushes the throttles forward. The P-61 surges. Meanwhile, far below them, something moves in the water. A second set of blips appears on Rook's radar display. He squints. No. They're not in the air. They're hugging the surface. A realization hits him like a punch. These aren't bombers? They're reconnaissance planes guiding a multi-wave strike. Widows, he barks into the phone. You've got additional contacts to your south skimming the waves. This might be a coordinated attack. Multiple vectors. Inbound, static fills the line. Then Dusk replies, tense now, roger that. We'll handle the high targets first. But Rook knows the truth. The Widows can't be everywhere at once. If they chase the Betty bomber high, the low flyers could hit the docks. If they pivot low, the Betty could devastate the airfield storage. He glances at the map. It's a chessboard. And they're one move behind, unless... His eyes drift toward the coastline, where a thick bank of tropical fog rolls toward the island like a drifting wall. Fog. Cover. A plan forms reckless. Improvised, dangerous. He grabs the phone again. Widow 1 turn 20 degrees port. Dave. To 6,000 and push for the fog bank. Use it as cover. You can cross under their formation and get behind both groups. There's a long pause, then Dusk, half amused in spite of the situation. Rook, that's insane. But a second later, we're doing it. The Widows roll sharply, diving into the darkness. Engines howling. If the Japanese spot the move, they'll cut the Americans to pieces. If they don't, they'll never see what's coming. The P-61s vanish into the fog like predators slipping underwater. Rook leans back, exhaling. Now all he can do is pray. Above the Pacific, two Japanese pilots laugh softly. Thinking the sky belongs to them, they won't be laughing for long. The fog closes around the P-61S like a living creature, moisture beads on the canopy, smearing the faint glow of the instruments. Outside, there is no sky, no sea, no horizon, only swirling vapor wrapping the Widows in a pale cocoon. Every man in the cockpits feels the same thing. One wrong movement and they'll collide with each other. Or with the ocean. Dusk's voice cracks through the radio, hushed as if the fog itself has ears. Hold formation. No lights. No chatter. The Widows drift downward silent, slow, deathly. In the rear seat of Widow 1, radar operator Jack. Cypher Kessel works the scope with meticulous precision. His instrument becomes their only set of eyes. His breathing slows. His fingers glide across the dials. He is more monk than airman right now. Contact bearing 310. He whispers. Altitude 9,000. They're cruising above the fog line. 2 Betty bombers, 1 escort 0. They haven't spotted us. Dusk nods to no one. Perfect. Because for the first time all night, advantage belongs to the Americans. They slide beneath the Japanese formation like wolves stalking deer from the shadows of a forest. The fog dampens engine roar, masking their approach. The Widow's radar sees clearly even when human eyes cannot. Cypher adjusts his gain. They're lining up for a drop run on your fuel depots. You're 30 seconds behind them. 30 seconds? Just enough up above. The Japanese crews feel calm, confident. Lieutenant Tetsuo Yoshida, pilot of the lead Betty, leans forward in his seat, cigarette glowing faintly in the darkness. His bombardier checks the island lights below, faint through the haze. A smooth run tonight, no interceptors in sight. The Americans must be sleeping. Yoshida taps ash onto the floor and chuckles to himself. These Americans, still children in the night. His co-pilot grins. They cannot fight what they cannot see. And behind them, the Escort Zero lazily drifts along, engine rumbling like a contented beast. The pilot, Petty Officer Akira Matsuba, doesn't even scan the fog below. After all, nothing deadly comes from beneath, right? Down in the fog bank, Cypher's voice sharpens. We're clear of the cloud. Punch through in 5, 4, 3. The Widows rise slowly. The world turns from milky white to perfect black. Another second. The Betty, the bombers appear above them, large, slow, illuminated by moonlight slicing through rifts in the clouds. Dusk's breath catches. They're right there, close enough to see the exhaust flicker. He flips his arming switches. Cypher, lock targets. Locked. Widow 2, take the escort. Widow 3, form on me. On my mark. Everyone tenses. Fingers curl around triggers. Engines hum like hungry predators ready to leap. Mark. Dusk slams the throttles. The P-61 shoots upward like a gunshot fired into the heavens. His cannons erupt bright, searing streaks tearing through the night. Tracer fire rips across the Betty's belly. The bomber jolts violently. Windows shatter outward. Flames burst through its port wing. The Japanese crew inside scream in shock. This attack came from the one direction they considered impossible, Yonagi's. Voice cracks. American night fighters? From below? His co-pilot panics. They're using radar. But the sky is already tearing open. The second Widow engages the Escort Zero, its dorsal turret spraying a lethal arc. Matsuba jerks the stick, but it's too late. An explosive burst hits his tail, sending the fighter spiraling into the void below. The Japanese advantage, their pride in night supremacy, fractures in a single, violent minute. Dusk watches the flaming bomber wobble, its left wing shearing off before the entire fuselage plunges downward in a trailing fireball. The explosion sends a strobe of light across the clouds, illuminating the underside of the Widows like a wartime flashbulb. Cypher exhales shakily. That's one. Second bomber turning east, losing altitude, but he freezes. Dusk. New. Contacts fast ones. Dusk stiffens. How many? Cypher swallows. A lot. Coming from the southwest at attack speed. Looks like a full strike group. Widow 3's pilot chimes in. Rook said they were staging multi-vector attacks. This must be the hammer. Dusk tilts his head, thinking fast. 3 Widows versus potentially a dozen Japanese aircraft bombers, fighters, maybe more. He can feel the next decision gathering like a storm. Do they chase the second bomber? Or turn into the path of the incoming strike group? Either choice could save the island. Either choice could get them all killed. He makes his choice. Widows, he says slowly. Form column. We intercept the strike force, we go right at them. Cyphers. Heart jumps. That's suicide. Dusk nods, only if we miss. Ahead of them, the sky glows faintly, engine flare from dozens of Japanese aircraft closing in. Behind them, the island sleeps, unaware of the storm forming above. Dusk grips the controls. You wanted a fight in the dark? He mutters. You're about to get one. The sky begins to vibrate before the enemy even appears. A low, distant hum, faint at first, then rising like a swarm of wasps spilling over the horizon. Dusk angles the Widow upward, punching through the final wisps of fog until the night becomes unnervingly clear. Cypher's voice stays low. Controlled. Contacts confirmed, multiple bombers, and fighters. I count at least 14 returns. 14, 3 Widows. You can almost feel the blood drain from every cockpit at the same time. Widow 2's pilot, Harris whispers into the radio. Boss, oh, we're outnumbered almost 5-1. Dusk replies without hesitation. Numbers don't matter, direction does. And right now, he has direction. We take the lead element first. Hit them before they know we're here. Cypher adds, they're flying tight. Good news is that means they're blind. Bad news is they outgun us by a mile. Dusk adjusts his trim, eyes hardening. Then we hit the head and cut off the snake. Above them, the Japanese strike force rolls in. 3G-4M Betty bombers spearhead the formation, engines glowing like floating embers. Behind them, 24 faint glimmers, the escort squadron, Ki-43 Oscars and a few veteran Zero pilots, canvassing the darkness with their narrow beams of searchlight reflective vision. The Japanese commander, Captain Hideo Morita, glances at his stopwatch. Perfect timing. The Americans below will never see them coming. Maintain heading, he calls. Release altitude in 3 minutes. Tonight we end their fuel and their runway. He peers down at the faint haze beneath his bomber. Fog, the Japanese consider it a blessing. What they don't consider is what might be hiding inside it. Dusk sees his moment. The widows climb until they're mere ghosts beneath the enemy's belly. Cypher whispers, give me 5 seconds and I'll have firing solutions for all three. Widow 3 trails slightly behind, its dorsal gunner spinning the turret. Following Cypher's bearings, breathing through clenched teeth. Above them, the Japanese planes continue cruising unconcerned. Unaware, Dusk's finger hovers over the trigger. Steady. 3 widows, rising like sharks beneath a calm ocean surface. 3. The Betty bombers drift into perfect alignment. 2. Cypher's voice drops to a whisper laugh. They have no idea? 1. Dusk's voice becomes steel. Now, the night explodes. Dusk fires first a surgical burst of 20 millimeters that rips into the lead bomber's fuel tank. Fire blooms outward in a sudden, violent blossom. The Betty jolts, engine coughing flame, its wings lighting up the entire formation. Japanese pilots shout over the radio, ambush! From below! Night fighters, American. Chaos erupts instantly. The second widow dives upward into the escort screen, its dorsal turret unloading a blistering line of tracers that swipe across an Oscar's canopy. The fighter snaps sideways, spiraling uncontrollably as sparks trail from its shredded wing. Widow 3 swings wide, flanking the third bomber its cannons, punching holes in the fuselage before the aircraft even begins evasive action. The Japanese formation disintegrates. A bomber breaks right. 3 fighters scatter left. Searchlights from the Japanese planes flick on in panic, slicing the sky with frantic beams, but the widows slip through the light like phantoms inside the enemy. Formation fear spreads fast. Captain Morita steadies his bomber, eyes wide. But how? The Americans, they have no night fighters here. His co-pilot stammers, they're using radar. They're climbing out of the fog like spirits. He's wrong, not spirits. Machines built exactly for this moment. Morita grips his controls, ripping their bomber into a desperate dive. We must break free! Return to base! Now! But a dark shape slides into his peripheral vision, a twin-engine silhouette. Black, silent, deadly, Morita realizes the truth. This is a new aircraft. His final words are swallowed by the widow's cannons. Back with Dusk's flight victory is close. And so is danger. Cypher's hand flies across his radar screen. They're scattering! We've broken their run! But the tone of his voice shifts. Something's wrong. Dusk, new contact, fast, very fast. Coming from the northeast. Dusk frowns. How fast? Cypher inhales sharply. Fast enough to be trouble. The return is tiny. Could be a recon plane or... He hesitates, or a veteran Zero who knows we're here. The island below flickers faintly with lights coming online, sirens waking up. Some radar station down there has probably spotted the battle. Dusk steadies the widow. Direction? Cypher's voice becomes a single, cold line, right toward us. Dusk feels his stomach tighten. The Japanese aren't running. One of them is coming straight for the widows. Not in panic, but with purpose. Somebody up there has decided that if America now rules the night, he's going to break that rule himself. Dusk whispers, all right, warrior. Come show me who you are. 138 net vibrates with tension. Dusk feels it in the P-61's frame metal humming like it knows something is coming. Cypher's eyes never leave the radar. Widow 3 sweeps silently beside them. The approaching blip grows, fast and deliberate as Zero, not a rookie, not panicked, a master of night interception. Every movement measured, calculated, deadly. Dusk mutters under his breath, Yoshida, it has to be him. Above, Ensign Tetsuo Yoshida grips the stick of his Zero tightly. He has chased shadows before. He has trained for impossible nights. But never has he faced predators who strike from fog and darkness with surgical precision, and yet, he has one advantage. The P-61 size makes it predictable. Slow enough to aim at. Heavy enough to intercept. He closes the distance, descending with a silent grace. The fog swirls, giving him cover. Visibility, 0, radar, non-existent. His instincts are his only weapon, ahead the Widow's maneuver. They've destroyed most of the bomber formation. The island below is safe, for now. But one wrong move and everything collapses. Dusk's voice cuts through the cockpit. Stay calm, this is what we train for. Yoshida dives through the fog like a shadow striking from nowhere. 1 second, empty sky. Next second, the massive belly of Widow 1 fills his vision. He flicks the stick hard, rolls, dives, and comes back around. Tracer streaks flash beneath him, sweeping past wings. He hears the faint roar of 20mm cannons but can't see the source. Every movement is instinct. Every twitch of the stick is life or death. Dusk pushes the P-61 into a tight climbing turn. He feels the Zero close behind. Radar, useless, all skill. All nerve for the viewer, this is heart-stopping. Two deadly machines. One human instinct, converging in near-complete darkness. Then the Widow slides downward, almost brushing the fog. Cypher calls out, 30 meters, approaching fast. He's coming from 12 o'clock high, Dusk swears softly. He steadies the throttle and snaps the nose up just as Yoshida dives. The two planes cross in a heartbeat closer than ever. Yoshida fires a short burst. Tracer streaks cutting through the dark, but the Widow rolls. Just enough to avoid direct hits. The bullets shred the air around the cockpit like lightning. Sparks fly off the gunner's turret. Dusk grits his teeth. Not today, the Widow rises sharply, pulling the Zero into pursuit. Cypher yells, steady, steady, firing solution in 3, 2, 1, the cannons roar. Tracer fire arcs beautifully, terrifyingly across the night. The Zero shudders under concentrated fire. Yoshida jerks the stick violently to escape. One of the shots hits. The Zero's left wing dips violently. Yoshida curses under his breath. He's experienced, skilled, and alive for years, but he now feels what most Japanese night pilots never feel: fear. He pulls up sharply. The P-61 rolls with him, wings trembling from the violent maneuver. The chase is now a deadly dance. The other Widows move in for support. Widow 2, flanking left, slashes past an escaping Betty bomber, cutting off potential cover for the Zero. Widow 3 rolls right, positioning itself in Yoshida's blind spot. For the first time, the Japanese pilot realizes the night belongs to no one, not the Zeros, not the bombers, not even the Pacific darkness. The Widows are everywhere at once. Dusk whispers to Cypher, time to finish this. Yoshida attempts one last evasive maneuver, an aggressive dive through the fog to lose them, but the P-61s anticipate it. Dusk climbs, aligning his guns with deadly precision. The Zero appears no more than a dark shape in the faint moonlight. He squeezes the triggers, the cannons flare. Tracer fire screams through the darkness. One final burst hits the Zero's fuselage. It spins violently, wings shearing slightly. The tail wobbles. Yoshida fights to regain control. But gravity and damage have already claimed it. The Zero begins a slow, terrifying spiral downward, disappearing into the black Pacific below. Dusk exhales. His hands shake slightly. Cypher whispers, "We did it. He's gone." The island below remains untouched. The night is theirs, and for the first time, Japanese pilots and anyone who doubted the U.S. night fighters would know the darkness itself had a master. Aftermath, the Widows regroup above the fog. Flaps and throttles adjusted, engines humming in triumph and exhaustion. The remaining Betty bombers have scattered, some retreating. The Japanese strike is broken. The fuel depots are safe. Dusk glances at the horizon, the first faint hint of dawn approaching. "Let's head home," he mutters. Cypher leans back, exhausted. "You realize what just happened?" Dusk doesn't answer. He simply looks at the rising sun breaking over the Marianas. Above them, the P-61 Black Widow has rewritten the rules of night warfare, from disbelief to awe, from mockery to defeat, from arrogance to survival. The night belongs to the hunters now.